I think that there's a huge problem. You understand? Because it's being reduced to a contest between legal and non-legal mining. I think that's a huge problem. You understand? So there's a suggestion that what is supposedly legal mining is safe, fine, and we can accommodate it and we can live with it and there's no problem. That's false. Because long before Galamsey became an issue, long before Galamsey became an issue, the Third World Network had established that the arsenic level in food produced in some of the mining areas, especially Obuasi, was 10 times more than World Health Organization standards. And we are talking about the early 1980s. And so this has been established. The arsenic level in food produced in mining areas was way above the permitted threshold by World Health Organization. So the problem was there. And if you go back to history, the history of mining and so on, you find many instances where multinational corporations engaged in mining had actually been fined for breaking the rules and so on. There was one case in which Newmont, and I mentioned Newmont, was engaged in mining in a certain area, and the fishes in the waters around that area started dying. And an investigation was constituted, and Newmont had to be fined heavily for pollution and so on. So the pollution of our waters, the damage to agriculture and so on, is not something which only small-scale illegal miners do. Mining has become a major problem for our agriculture. It has become a major problem for our health. It has become a major problem for everything, for our sustenance as a people. And I think that what we should be discussing is what kind of mining should we engage in order to promote the health of our people. What kind of mining should we engage in order to ensure that the environment is not unnecessarily destroyed? What kind of mining should we engage in which can be deemed to be sustainable? And this has nothing to do with whether it is illegal or legal. What kind of substances should we allow in our mining? Should we still be allowing the injections of arsenic in mining? Should we be allowing mercury in mining? What should be the purpose of mining? Should mining be for private profit? Or mining should be an exercise that we engage in order to generate resources for national development? And national development here being defined as the collective prosperity of our people. These are the challenges. Clear. So when we reduce it to illegal versus non-legal mining and so on, we fudge the issues and becomes then impossible to look for solutions to the problem which all of us are facing. Now I look at the dimensions of the problems that we are describing, and it is extremely worrying, and we've discussed it and raised it many times over. One, you look at the medical report. Ghana Medical Association has a report on so-called Galamsey and so on. And they are reporting that in many of the mining areas, children are being born with defective organs. There are reports that children are being born actually without eyes. Not that they are born blind, they are being born without eyes. In some areas, children are being born without limbs. They are being born with defective organs like kidneys and so on. This is a reality. This is documented. There is medical evidence to support that, okay? Beyond that, I mean, there's a recent report, I think it's about 2 weeks old or so, which also suggests that food grown in these mining areas contain heavy metals. You know, very heavy metals. There's talk about contumely and so on. When I was growing up, oranges in Obuasi were considered to be the best oranges in the world. They were sweet, they were yellow, and so on. Today, the arsenic level in oranges produced in Obuasi make it poisonous to consume, and so on. So this is what we are talking about. Now, we are also talking about a situation where other economic activities are dying as a result of mining. And one of the best examples, for example, is cocoa, the cocoa industry. Over the last 2-3 years, cocoa production has fallen by more than 50%. Now, if you come to consider the claim, and it's a claim, that cocoa is the lifeblood of the Ghanaian economy, and production has gone down by as much as 50%, attributable to mining, then we are in serious trouble, and we need to look at mining. We need to have a review of mining. We need to have a second look at mining in order to introduce practices and so on which will make mining beneficial, to our people. Now, there's something else which is not factored in the discussion, and it's simply this. You see, gold is a non-renewable resource. There is gold embedded in our soils, no doubt. But you see, if you take the gold out, you cannot plant it again. You cannot replant gold. Once you take it out, it's gone, and it's gone forever. It's a non-renewable resource. Now, even today, as we have so much of that resource embedded in our soils, look at the levels of poverty in the country, the levels of poverty in the country. Look at the bad roads we have. There are problems with access to education, access to health, and so on. We are in trouble. We've had to run to the IMF and the World Bank 18 times in order to look for solutions which we never get, and so on, with all of these resources embedded in our soils. Now, I want all of us to sit back and to think about 50 years from now. 50 years from now, when we have taken all of these non-renewable resources from our soil and deposited them in Europe and Far East and so on, what will be the fate of our grandchildren? This is something we have to be thinking about, and stop this sometimes weird, stupid competition between NBC and NPP, who is responsible, who said what and what. The future of Ghana, the future of our grandchildren and so on is at stake. It's a non-renewable resource. If you take it out of the ground, it's gone forever. You understand? And that should inform our thinking on this problem. Now, there's one person that I've quoted many times over the years. And who is that? It's Nochini. What did he say? Nochini says that gold is not a material which will rot. It has never rotted. If you don't have the means and the arrangements to exploit it for your benefit now, leave it in the soil. Don't touch it, leave it there. 200 years from now, you can go back and dig it up. You understand? So there's no compulsion to dig out this non-renewable material by all means or by any means now. It doesn't make sense so to do. So we should get our regulatory framework right, we should get our science right, and so on. And when we do get these things right, the gold will be there. It will not be rotted. We can go for it and so on. It does make a lot of sense, to me, to take that approach. Now listen, sometimes when you listen to our politicians and political communicators, I think they unfortunately have no respect, for us. And that's why they can play this childish blame game. Master, the last election, past elections. Why? I heard, and I'm sure that all of us on this panel heard, NPP stalwarts mount the political platform and says they are not fools. They are not going to tackle Galamsey and lose the elections. Am I lying? If I'm lying, tell me. The tapes are there, we can play them right now. That we are not fools. They are pushing us to go and fight Galamsey so we can lose our seats and lose elections and so on. They said that. Yes, it is true that there were elements of the NDC side who also said that, oh, this problem can be solved in 3 months. In fact, somebody said a couple of weeks. You know, all you have to do is to impose a state of emergency and the problem will be solved and so. We heard all of this. Okay? But why? Is this the game we should be playing now? Does this game solve the problem? It doesn't. This blame game doesn't solve the problem. It doesn't in any way resolve this concrete problem which is leading to deformation of children, which is leading to the deformation of the national economy, which is leading to a situation where in some areas pipe-borne water can no longer be produced for our people's consumption. So let us come together. Let us begin to think. And I am in agreement with the minority leader, Afenyo Makin, when he says that, look, drop all this blame game and so on. Let's sit down. Let's have a discussion based on science. Let's have a discussion which is based on a genuine effort to address the problem, and let's find solutions and move forward and stop who said what in the last election. And this is what Afenyo Makin says, and I think he makes a lot of sense, you know, when he talks like this. So, what is happening? Now, again, and I'm talking about statements which were made in the past, and I think that it should be statements which were made in the past and it should remain at that level. You understand? I'm only bringing these statements up to show the complete lack of sincerity on the part of major political actors. Why? There was one particular take which was so very instructive. This is a tape on which leaders of the New Patriotic Party were in a meeting, and I'm sure you know that tape, where actually one of them said, look, the party needs money to organize, and that Galamsey is one of the areas where we can make money to organize the party, so let us do it, and so on. You know about that tape. You understand? We know about Frimpong Boateng's report, the counter arguments and so on. We know about all of that and so on. So I'm saying that let's put that aside. Let's come back to the drawing board. Let us apply science. Let us apply our concrete knowledge of the problem and so on, and find a solution going forward. Now, look, no matter what is said, no matter what is said, I have no reason whatsoever to believe that somebody like the current Minister for Lands and Natural Resources has no commitment to fighting against Galamsey, whatever it is. I mean, listen to him, see him in the field, doing things and so on. His commitment is very clear. It may not be achieving immediate results. It may take some time to achieve results, but the commitment is clearly there. And I have no doubt at all about it. Now, you see, recently, there's somebody on the minority, and so now you can help me to, you can remind me about him, who made the point that, oh, what the Mahama administration is doing is exactly what they did. They've said that. So my goodness, for God's sake, if what the Mahama administration is doing is a repeat of what you did, why are you complaining? Why are you complaining? That is what they are telling us. They are telling us, oh, they are not doing anything new. All the things that they are doing are the things that we did. So you did the same things. What moral authority do you have to criticize somebody for doing what you claim that you did? Yes, it is slow. The pace of reclamation of land is slow. The quality of water has not been restored completely yet. There are some signs of improvement, but it is not sufficient, and so on. These are facts. So what do we do? What do we do is to mobilize all the knowledge we have, to mobilize all the strengths we have, and so on, to see if it is possible to develop another paradigm for mining in Ghana. Then the president calls a meeting of those who are most critical of the issue. Say, why is he calling the meeting? It's for propaganda purposes. So what should he do? Ignore them? Not have a conversation with them? Where is that coming from? What is the problem? So now we should not even be engaging groups in the country which express concern about problems that confront all of us. What is this? I don't understand it. You understand? Now, one of the things that we are going to have to decide going forward is simply the purpose of mining. What is the purpose of mining? Whatever mining we are engaged in, whether it's lithium mining, whether it's gold mining, diamond mining, or whatever, what is the purpose of mining? Because you can engage in mining only for the accumulation of private profits. You can engage in mining as an enterprise for the purposes of private accumulation. That's a model you can follow. And then you can engage in mining not for private accumulation, but as an enterprise designed to facilitate national development. That's another model. Which of the models do we want? We're having all of these problems now because the central focus of mining is for private profit. Private accumulation of profit. You understand? And when mining is centered largely or only on the accumulation of private profit, you get the kinds of problems that we have today. So we need to have a new national orientation about mining. The purpose of mining. Why do we mine? And what is it that we can do in order to keep this orientation intact? That is our challenge. You understand? But if you reduce it to a propaganda contest between NPP and NDC, we are not getting anywhere. We need to rise above this propaganda contest between the NPP and the NDC. You see, Sana, when I came to the studio this morning, I noticed that the topic that we're discussing had been shifted in such a manner as to include a discussion of the prosecution of Chairman Wuntumi. And you will remember that I raised immediate objections. Look, and we are happy that on this panel, British is here. She's a lawyer.
And also,
you understand? Pardon?
Kobe is also a lawyer.
And you are also a lawyer. Look, we should be very careful. We are getting to a stage where even matters which are before the courts are being publicly discussed, even sometimes by lawyers who make all manner of prejudicial statements which clearly are in violation of the rights of accused persons. And I think we should watch it. You understand? Allegations have been made against Chairman Wuntumi. He's been arrested, he's been granted bail, his matter is before court. It is not for you and I to determine whether he's guilty or not. You understand? If you have to apply the rules, if you have to apply the proper framework for adjudication, for justice and so on, it is not for us to be making those determinations as to whether he will be convicted or not convicted and so on. In fact, under normal circumstances, those commentaries would amount to contempt of courts. You understand? So he's been arrested. As far as I'm concerned, there's no evidence that his rights have been violated. He's been given his full rights. He's represented by counsel. He's been given bail conditions. If he fulfills them, he will go home and so on. But ultimately, it's for the courts to decide whether he's guilty or not. It's for the courts to decide whether he has violated law or not violated law. It's not for me to come and sit on Alaji and pronounce judgment over him. You know, and I think we should avoid it. And this is not just about Chairman Wontumi. It's about all the cases before our courts. One of the other things that I think is important that we observe has to do with the fundamental principles underpinning the 1992 Constitution. And one of those fundamental principles underpinning the 1992 Constitution is the principle of separation of powers. You understand? That principle is an important principle. You cannot be upholding the values of constitutionalism if you act in ways which undermine this principle of separation of powers. And I think it's important for us all to be guided by these principles. It's important for all of us to make a conscious effort to ensure that citizens who, for good reason or for bad reason or for whatever reason, fall, how do they say it?
Fall foul.
Fall foul of the law, have every opportunity to defend themselves and to do so without us, veering into the political arena to make prejudicial statements which may not afford them the full opportunity to defend themselves. Look, I was very upset in the last 8 years or so about the trial of Dr. Stephen Ofono. I mean, I saw aspects of the trial that I actually believed constituted a gross violation of his rights as a citizen, and so on. You understand? What happened to Dr. Ofono should not happen to anybody else in the NPP or any other political party for that matter. We have to be fair to everybody. At the end of the day, if the Attorney General provides concrete evidence and the court is satisfied that Wontumi or any other person who has been accused has violated the law, let the law take its course. You understand what I'm saying? At the end of the day, the Attorney General has a responsibility to present a watertight case to the court. On the basis of the evidence that the Attorney General's department is able to adduce and so on, the court will make a determination. Indeed, if the court does not make the right determination, if the court does not weigh the evidence properly and so on, there are other causes which can be pursued. That is why we have the right of appeal and so on. Let's do it. Let's do things properly. Let's do things clean. Let's make sure that citizens' rights are protected. Let's make sure that the interest of the state is protected and so on. I get very worried. And I said this maybe 2-3 years ago, and you would remember, and there was some discomfort when I said it. When I gave the Atamils Memorial Lecture, I raised a caution that there's a problem in any society which counts convictions of citizens as political gains. And it doesn't matter whether it's the NPP or the NDC. There's a problem with that kind of thinking. I'm happy so far with efforts which are being made by government to deal with this problem of mining, and I say problems of mining deliberately, because even some so-called legal mining has dangerous consequences for us and so on. So I'm so happy with some of the measures which have been put in place. I am also happy that citizens of this country continue to speak out about what they consider to be right and wrong about the measures which are being implemented. I'm happy about the president's engagement with so-called civil society organizations and the outcomes of that meeting. I'm happy that everybody is contributing to generating ideas for the resolution of this problem. Let us continue on that path, and hopefully we'll be able to design mining in Ghana in such a way as will be beneficial to the citizens in their collective, and we would then be able to approach mining not as an enterprise for private accumulation, but an enterprise for the advancement of our society.